Thanks for joining me here in Milton, Ontario on a blustery autumn day. We actually had snow yesterday, and that prompted me to take some video of a photo shoot. When I want to show off a new object, I usually get the hubby to take some pictures. Well, yesterday he was busy, so I set up the camera and in my garage, facing out, so that I could take some pictures of my Cafe Vibrant scarf. And I will take some stills out of it and put them in here because I just love this scarf. And at the very end, I'm going to put the footage of trying to take the pictures. It's really quite hilarious. It's hard to do on your own, but it was fun, and so I've left that at the end for you to see. And the reason why I'm bringing this up again is there was a conversation on Ravelry on the Marie Wallen group about gauge. And gauge, I'm sort of a stickler for gauge and for swatching. And the one thing I've noticed that people don't get about gauge is that just because a particular designer recommends a certain needle doesn't mean that that's the needle you use and you have to obtain gauge on that needle. You have to adjust your needle to get the proper gauge. Also, just because you've knit with a particular yarn before does not mean that you just pick up the same needle and carry on a new project, because sneaky designers and sneaky yarn manufacturers, they change up the gauge on their, depending on what kind of a fabric they're intending to have. So this is a prime example. This is a big scarf. They want it to be very loose. This is knit at a much looser gauge than normally Rowan says to use on felted tweed. And I'm just going to refer to my Ravelry project pages here because I haven't written anything down, and I really should have, I guess. So when I look at my projects, Vibrant, it is knit at the gauge of 22 stitches and 30 rows to 4 inches. And I can assure you that's what I got. And when you look at this, you can see through the knitting. You can see the stitches, but you actually can sort of see a little bit through the knitting. But it gives you this beautiful drape, which you will see in the pictures. This sweater is Amaryllis by Marie Wallen. Now Marie knits, I feel, at a very firm gauge. I like it. When you knit a sweater at a firm gauge, you'll notice it doesn't really change all that much when you block it, because it's at a, I don't like to say tighter. It's not tight, it's a firm gauge. So let me look that one up for you, this one up for you. Amaryllis. The gauge called for Amaryllis is 30 stitches and 34 rows to 4 inches in the stocking stitch. There's a different gauge actually for this area down here where the patterning is. So you have to look at that in the pattern. Does the gauge change depending on what area of the garment you're working on? Now, if you go to the actual listing that Rowan has on felted tweed, it recommends a gauge of 22 to 24 stitches. So Marie's stocking stitch gauge is actually tighter than the recommended gauge by Rowan. I've always sort of felt that Rowan's gauges are a little bit loose. That's just me, you know. So anyway. And why I bring this up is because in the mail, I received my new Marie Wallen Fair Club. Fair Club 4 this year, it is another garment, and it's done in felted tweed. And this is what brought up the discussion on the Marie Wallen group, is about getting gauge. So on this pattern, and I like to keep my patterns, you know, pretty and pristine. I don't like to touch them. So I'm just going to show you what I've done, because this is an epic knit, and I think epic knits deserve to be treated with special care. So I've made up a Fair Isle Club 4 binder. So I printed off my pattern. Each page of the pattern is in the binder in sleeve protectors. That way I can use my highlighter tape and work right from here in the binder. I can make any notes I want. If I note something down, or if I see something in the pattern that I want to make note of, I can write it down on this disposable piece of paper rather than worry about damaging my big pattern. In case you've ever wondered about the Marie Wallin Fair Isle Club, I'll just show you typically how it arrives. It arrives in a box, and in that box is this other box. Nice white Marie Wallin box. It has your pattern, hard copy pattern, in a folder for you. It also has a Marie Wallin project bag. This one's a little bit heavier than the one that came in the British Breeds box. This club actually includes a lovely pin from Textile Garden. So that's going to look nice on this finished sweater. And here's all the felted tweed that you need to finish this garment. I love getting these boxes, I have to say, and I'm really, really sorry that these are always limited edition. They're, I believe it's 500 spots in the club, and they sold out, I think, within a couple of weeks. So you really had to be fast off the mark for this club. I think Lyric, last year's club, really caught a lot of interest, and people were ready and waiting to sign up for this club. So this is actually starting in November. I will have time to knit other things as well as this club knit, so I'll keep knitting other things and reporting on that, but I won't tease you too often about this garment, because nothing's worse than seeing something that you can't have, right? Also in the mail this month, I received a copy of Pale, Kim Hargreaves. I love Kim's designs. They are, I have to say though, I think that every book is very similar, but very similar in a good way. Her designs are classic, they're clean, they are sort of minimal. Is minimal the right word? No, I don't think they are. They're classic. They're classic and they're clean. There's always a hat. There's always some cabled sweaters. There's always things like this. Absolutely. Let's try and get the sunlight off of that. Absolutely plain and simple. That would look great over top of a shirt. It's shown there just as a pullover, but I think it would look great as a layering piece. There's an oversized tunic. Wild and Crazy leopard skin jacket. I think she's done something like that before. And I absolutely love this, the shaded cabled pullover in Kid Silk Case. So anyway, 21 designs. Kim puts out a book like this twice a year. Kim doesn't participate on Ravelry. She's very reclusive, I guess. Yeah, I was going to say reclusive might not be the word, but reclusive is the word, because you don't hear of her doing workshops or anything else. She just produces, and I'm not saying just, she produces 2 lovely collections a year. She uses Rowan yarns, and people have been collecting these since day one. And I don't think, no, she doesn't put any numbers on this, so I can't tell you how many of these books there are. I have quite a few of them downstairs. And it always has the little K for Kim. So Pale. So if you're a fan of classic, beautiful designs with that perfect detail, and the patterns are always impeccable. Last month, the Life LDC and the Christy Glass Knits video blogs met because of Christy actually completing crocheting the Fula design by Marie Wallen, and it was from this book, Winter Crochet. Christy's been really busy at the Rhinebeck Sheep and Wool Festival in New York last weekend. I haven't heard whether she's received this my copy that I sent her, but I did offer to one of you guys a copy also from the comments that you made on my last video update. So the winner of that was Snoopy25. I've contacted her on Ravelry. She's got back to me. I have her address, so this will be going out to her. It'll probably be on its way before you actually see this. So thank you very much for participating, and I look forward to our next little giveaway. I'm not sure when it's going to be, but keep watching, because occasionally I have little giveaways. A couple of videos ago, my Rowan Magazine 64 review, I introduced you to Rowan's new Alpaca Classic yarn, and I really love the look of this yarn, and I was really, really pleased to see that the Espace Tricot ladies in Montreal, Melissa in particular, obviously likes it because she's done a design. If you watch their video blog, you will have seen this being introduced. It's called the In the Loop Cowl. It uses 5 shades of Alpaca Classic, and I'm going to be knitting this along with a few of my knit friends, and I'm hoping that in a month or two I'll be able to show off a few different color combinations of it. So this is a free pattern available on Ravelry from the Espace Tricot Ravelry shop. Download it, print it off, and get yourself some Alpaca Classic. It needs 2 balls of 2 different main colors for the stripe section, this small stripe section, and the inside is 1 ball of 3 different contrasting shades. So give it a go. I'd love to see some more of this being done. I do have to say, this is a pattern that you really need to use the yarn that it calls for, because Alpaca Classic is such a light, fluffy yarn, and that's what makes this pattern work. I'm sure you could knit it in something else, but I think if you want that light and voluminous knit, you need to use the Alpaca Classic. That's just my opinion. Musa update. I challenged myself to knit the front piece of Musa before the end of the month, and I did. And as you see, this is a big, huge piece of knitting. I had both the front and the back over the back of the couch, and I think hubby thought I was knitting another blanket because it's a lot of knitting. So right now I am getting ready to sew up the shoulder seams and the side seams. And then I looked at all these ends and I thought, oh man, what are you going to do with all these ends? So I've made a radical decision. I am not going to weave them in. I am going to tie knots. You see the knots? I'm going to tie knots, which helps to stabilize that edge stitch, because that edge stitch, that last stitch, the first and last stitch of the row, is going to disappear into the seam. Okay, darling? Blackie and Daisy are tired. They've had baths today, so Daisy's had a little cough there. Nothing serious. She is 15, remember. She's going to be 15 in December. So these stitches that are going to be eaten up into the seam, I need them to be firm to make the seaming easier. But then, do I want to actually go and weave these down? No, and that's why I decided to tie them in knots. I'm not sure if I'm going to trim them or if I'm going to braid them or what I'm going to do. I'll worry about that after the seaming has been done. So we're on schedule. I'm going to, excuse me, someone wants to get down. There you go, darling. I'm going to sew up the shoulder seams, the side seams, and then knit the sort of turtleneck collar and the big rib on the arms. And then I'll be done. True confession, I actually started to knit up the shoulder seams. I was really happy with myself. it looked fabulous, and it turned out that I had sewn the right back to the left back shoulder. That wouldn't have worked, would it? So I had to take it out. True confession. So I've finished the front piece. I've sewn the extra little piece of rib up to the side here. That gives me that side seam slit. The edge stitch I did not incorporate into this little bit of sewing because that edge stitch is going to disappear when I do my seaming. So looking at the edge stitch with all these ends hanging, it's in some areas that edge stitch is quite loose. So one of the ways to take care of that, of course, would be to weave it all in. And I really quite like weaving, but I'm running short on time here with this one, so I want to get it done. So I've made the radical decision is that I'm going to just knot these and trim them off. And after some research, I decided on how to do it. You should be able to take a pair of shades together when they finished. Sometimes, this first example, sometimes there's 3 yarns together, and fine, do them together. These 2 will be together. These 2 will be together. Looking at the pattern, I can see which ones go together. So here's how I do it. And actually I'm going to just pass this first 3 group first, and I'll do it on my knee on this one. So I'm left-handed, so I hold the yarn in my left hand, wrap it around the index finger of my right hand, pass it under to make a loop, and that loop is right down near the edge of the knitting, so I hold on to that loop and pull in, and it's easy just to hold it with your 2 fingers and gently pull the yarn, and the knot tightens up right to the edge of your knitting. Now, I know most people are right-handed, so here's how I do it right-handed. Okay, so right-handed, holding in the right hand around the left hand index finger, underneath to make a loop, there's your loop. Pull that loop down close to the knitting, then hold on to it and tighten it up, and there you go, a nice knot quite close to your knitting. And I'm going to do that up the whole side. I've done it on this side already, and when I'm finished all 4 sides, I'm going to sew the shoulder seams and the side seams to get ready for my finishing. So my mousse is finished. I've done the neckline, picked up the armhole ribs, sewed up the side seams. Sorry for the little jiggle here on my ironing board. And now I've washed it, and I put it on my woolly board and let it dry. So I'm going to do a press to give it a nice finish, a steam press, and I'm also going to steam press the seams so they lie flat. You can see there's quite a bulk even with these stitches loose, so I'm going to have to make a decision about what I'm going to do with that. And I'm just running this lightly over. It is touching but I'm not heavily pressing. I'm just running it lightly over on the inside to finish off, settle down all the floats on the back. There are edges everywhere, not edges, there are ends everywhere. Flip it over, do the same thing. And I am pressing the nose of the iron down on the seam because I want to flatten that seam. Actually, I'm going to separate the ends and make them go to their proper sides. Before I do that, I'll do that again. There we go. Everybody seems to be on their own side. It looks like here I might have carried one over, but it doesn't really matter. So I'll do that again. I'll give it a steam with the I'll just do the other side. In the seaming, it looks like I've caught the ends of two of my I've caught the ends of two of my yarns there, but not a problem. Okay. To take any bulk out of the seam. So I'm going to turn that around. And you can see the seams lying nice and flat now. I'm going to give it a light press all over the outside. Just running the hot steam iron over it lightly. And you can see the side seams don't match up. They're not perfect full motifs. That was one of the reasons why I decided to knit Musa in flat in pieces. The other reason, the big factor for me, was that this is a really big oversized sweater and it's a lot of stitches, and I just didn't want to be going round and round and not making any progress, because once I actually sat down to do this, like I did the whole front piece, my goal was to finish it in October, and I did. I finished it in 3 weeks in October. I had a whole week left over from my schedule. I want to press the shoulder seams. I wish I had one of those pressing boards that you see tailors have. I actually used to have one back in the days when I sewed, but I think I gave it away. I should check downstairs. Maybe it's stuck in a storage box somewhere. So I'm just going to lightly press the shoulder seam from the outside, so I want it to lie flat. Just make sure your fabric underneath is flat also, and avoid steaming in a avoid touching this fold. Okay, so now comes the big decision, what to do with my ends. And I think I'm going to be brave and do what the Shetlanders do. These have been tied with an overhand knot. They've been washed, so the yarn has felted a little bit. And I'm just going to trim them off. I've never done this before. This is the first time that I'll have done a tied, any kind of tying, but I know the Shetlanders do it. So here we go. And I'm going to leave my seam like that. So next time I'll have some finished project photos for you. I've been trying to figure out how to wear this. It's going to be a little bit challenging for me. So as a plus size person in today's world, I wear a Canadian 16. That's, I think, like a UK 20. Which sort of scares me, the numbers scare me, but doesn't matter. I will style it, and I'll show you what it looks like. In the middle of finishing Musa, Crazy Notion, I decided to cast on a scarf, a really basic scarf. It's based on a Sarah Hatton design. It's just garter stitch, 22 stitches. The Sarah design is in one color, but I wanted to use some of the new shades of Rowan Big Wool. Rowan Big Wool, everybody loves Rowan Big Wool. Knits up really fast, 10mm needles, and some new shades this year. Absolutely gorgeous. Pink, sort of a turquoise blue, a gray blue, a mauve, and this really sort of like, what is that? Is it an acid green? What kind of green is that? Anyway, I decided to knit a big long scarf color blocking, and the idea is I'm going to go from the gray blue to the acid green to the turquoise color, then I'm going to go from the turquoise to the pink, and then back to the gray blue. I decided that this color didn't really go with these four. It's for a particular person, and her coat is pink. So I thought these colors would really stand out against the pink. So that's something that I'd really like to finish in the next few weeks, because in addition to finishing Musa. I'd like to say thank you to all of you who are subscribers and who are watching my videos. And in particular, when a comment is made and there's a little bit of dialogue going back and forth, that's wonderful. It makes us feel like we're part of a community here. So thank you very much. It's a little bit of bonus video at the end of my K-Facet Vibrant scarf. Hope you enjoy it. Until next time.